Hello guys, and welcome to your sixth and final lesson on how to create a comic strip. On this video we are going to talk about color and apply it on the main elements of our comic. The first thing that we are going to do is to create our color palette. I am going to explain how I choose my flat colors and the shading. I created a new layer and rename it. Then I will click on my color box and it will display the color picker window. From this window we will pick our colors. I always start with the skin color and choose the other ones from there. In this case I will choose Roy's skin color from the orange palette. On my new layer I will use the marquee tool and create a little square. Then with the fill tool I will color the shape with the skin color chosen. And now we have our first color displayed so we can pick it with the eyedrop tool. Now I will duplicate the layer so I can have the color squares with the same size. I will move it down so I can compare the colors easily. Let's choose the color of the t-shirt. For this part I will pick a bright red color. Here I have already decided that I want a warm color scheme for Roy. After I finish picking the color, I will fill it on my palette. In this layer, I just block the pixels so I can fill it with the paint bucket tool. I will duplicate the same shape to continue picking our next color. I will merge the shapes of my color palette so I can have everything together. Now I have to think of Roy's shorts, but it will be an easy decision to make it all work perfectly together. I will go to the orange palette on my color window and I will choose a nice brown color. This color is still on my warm palette. Now that we have our main flat color palette, I will choose the colors that I will be using for the shades on the comic strip. What I like to do in this part is to choose the complementary colors from the flats that I already have. And then, when I am applying the shadows, I like to put a blending mode on my layer so my shadows will look more natural. In this part I am writing beside my palette the element in which every color is going to be. I do this when I am using a more complex color palette. For now, it will help you know how I will use each color. With my marquee tool, I will select the three colors and duplicate them so I can put the shadow palette here. I will move the new palette to the right so we can appreciate better the colors I choose. I am using the same brush that we created for the inking process. I will make it bigger so I can draw inside the new shapes. I will open again the color picker window and start with the shadow of the skin. The process to follow here is that you have to think on the complementary color you have on the skin. In this case is a yellow-orange color. The complementary color of yellow is purple, so I will immediately go to the purple color and start looking for a nice tone for the shadow. As you can see, I am applying the shadow color on the skin to see how it looks. It makes a really nice contrast from the skin, so I will finish coloring the shape. We now have a really nice color for our shadow. Remember that we are going to use blending modes with this palette. Now we are going to look for the shadow color for the t-shirt. The complementary color of red is green, so I will move the color picker to the greens. I am looking for a dark green, so it will look different from the flat red that we already have. Once I have the one I want, I will fill my next shape. I am very satisfied with our shadow colors. If you have any problems arriving to your wanted color, display and compare them on your canvas with your flat colors and you will see which one works better. For the last shadow color, I will do the same process I have done for the last two colors. I will pick the complementary color from the brown. The main reason I use this process is to have more dynamism on my color palettes. Sometimes you can apply more colors as shadows than just using black or gray tones. In this part, I am just finishing filling my last shadow color. We have our final palette complete. I am just going to choose the last two colors for the desk and chair. Before choosing the last colors, I am going to merge the shadows into the palette layer so I can have them all in one place. I am going to pick two of my shapes and I will duplicate them. I will use them for the colors of the desk and the chair. I will move them to the far right. These are the same steps I did before. I am just organizing my color palette so I can see my colors clearly. Just so you can see and appreciate the colors better, I am going to move them a little bit farther to the right. I will also write where I will be using these new colors. Remember to keep all of your layers organized so you won't have any problems looking for something you might need later. I am just going to use two colors for the desk and the chair. I was thinking about using some classic colors from a school. They will contrast from one another and it will look very cool. For the main color, I will choose a bright yellow, just to keep the desk interesting, and then I will break things up a little bit using a navy blue to color the details. As you can see in front of you, the two colors are looking good together. This combination will work perfectly for the comic strip. Now that we finished with the color palette, we are ready to start coloring. I am going to be explaining the process that I do while coloring so you can apply it to your work. As you can see, I have my color palette near the first panel. I created a new layer under the inking layer to use it for the color of all the elements. Remember to rename your layers. With the eyedrop tool, I am going to pick the skin color. Then I will select my ink layer. With the magic wand tool, I will click inside the face and arms. If you hold shift while using the magic wand, you can select more shapes at a time. On the menu, I will click on the Select tab. Then I will go to Modify and click on Expand. A new window will be displayed. Here I will leave it at 2 pixels. This will make my selection expand by 2 pixels in general. I will go to my color layer and fill the spaces with the Paint Bucket tool. Then I will use my brush to finish coloring the spaces that my selection couldn't reach. Now we have the skin of Roy completely painted with the skin color. This is mainly the process that I use for applying my flat colors. I make it this way so I can go faster. I will continue coloring the other elements of the first panel. I suggest to you that you start with the elements that have the same color. Just follow your color palette and fill all of the shapes that need that color. This will make you work a lot faster when you have a more complex panel, and remember to always have the color palette near you so you can pick the colors quickly. Another thing that I will suggest to you is to use your brush on smaller places. Sometimes the selection of the magic wand won't reach tight spaces, so always make sure to pass the brush so you will feel everything. The brush that I am using is the same brush we made on our last lesson. I am using it because it has the pen pressure activated and I can decide how much color I want to put on my drawing. As you can see, I have finished the flat colors on Roy. Now I will continue coloring the desk and the chair. Same process here as well. Remember to select all of the shapes that have the same color and fill them correctly. If you miss something, just go back and color it with your brush. This is the process that I use, but it is okay if you want to color in a different way. Maybe you prefer using the brush. It doesn't matter as long as you get the job done. If you are coloring the way I do, it is always a good tip to go back on your coloring and fill in the blank spaces that may come up. It doesn't matter if you have already finished. I am finishing coloring the desk with the color blue that we chose earlier. It will give a great contrast between the yellow of the desk and the warm palette on Roy. I like to give some kind of contrast between the elements of my comic. Also, try playing with a lot of different palettes to see what works best for you. We are done with the flat colors of the first panel. Now I am going to apply the shadows on my character. For this step, I always create a new layer on top and put all of the color on the same one, because later we are going to put the blending mode on it. When I am coloring the shadows of my comic, I always use the brush tool and draw them by hand, different from what we've been doing. When you are coloring the shadows of your comic, you have to first imagine where your source light is located. Once you know where the source light is located, you have to think where the shadows are going to be projected. Usually, the shadows are going to appear on the other side from where the light comes. Also, you have to think which part of the body are blocking the path of the light. Also, I suggest to you that you practice light and shadows. You can look at photos of people and see how the light behaves on different positions of the face and body. Try to emulate this type of lighting into your work, and little by little you will understand better the behavior of the light and shadow. Also, you can experiment with color and different contrasts. In the end, light is color and they go together, so if you understand them, you won't have problems when choosing another color palette. In this part, I am almost done applying the shadows on the face of my character. The color looks a little off from the skin, but we will fix it when we finish. When you are choosing your color palette, you have to be constantly thinking about which colors work best for your comic. The same thing applies when you are coloring your shadows. You have to think if a more cartoony shadow works, or maybe you want to make them look realistic. It all depends on your personal drawing style and on the comic strip you want to present as a final product. There are a lot of styles in the comic world. A tip to decide what your work needs is just look at the comic strips that you like the most and see how they are drawn. Maybe some stuff will work for you. Or maybe you will have to look for a more specific style in order to give your comic a better direction. The important thing is for you to keep learning everything you can. This will help you develop your own style of coloring. In my case, I normally don't use a color palette for highlights, only on specific drawings, but maybe you can experiment that on your comic. It takes time to have a well-defined drawing style, and this style is constantly evolving, so don't worry too much about it. If you are working every day, you will find it very soon. Be patient with your coloring and practice the things that you like the most from other comics. You will know what to put into your work and which other things leave behind. As you can see on the image in front of you, I am almost done with the shadows. I just have to finish Roy's brown shorts with the color blue that we once picked. In this part of the panel, I decided to leave a bit of light on his clothes. The desk is covering most of his pants, but if I leave all shadows, it wouldn't look good. As you know, light is always bouncing, and maybe my main source light can't reach his shorts, but it can absorb it from other part, from a bouncing source. Now that I finished the shadows, I am going to put the blending mode. Click on the menu on top of the layer window. I will go and choose multiply, and immediately my shadows are darker. It blends with the flat colors. As you can see, the blending mode multiply works perfectly because that option is used for darkening the colors. Also, the other options that are next to it. If you use another blending mode like the ones that are below the dark ones, those will make the colors lighter. That's why they don't look good when I use overlay. I will go back to multiply because I think it's the one that works the best for my comic strip. Feel free to experiment with the other options. Although I think multiply looks amazing, I will lower the opacity because it looks a little bit too strong. I think I will leave it at 80%. Finally, we finish coloring the first panel. The color palette looks very good on Roy, and the shadows really lift the flat colors. The important thing that you have to achieve with your coloring is to give a lot of character to your comic strip. It has to help your drawing, not turning it down. I am going to color the next panels on a time-lapse video. I suggest you check it out because I will explain the things of the process that I did differently. Remember to keep your color palette near the panel or element you are working on. It will be easier and quicker to pick the colors needed. Use your eyedrop tool to choose the colors from your palette. To use this tool, you just have to click the letter I from your keyboard. Just click on top of the color to use it. Make the selections on the inking layer and then put the color on the layer below. Make sure that you don't get confused with the layers because it will take you a little bit of time to fix a mistake. To make your selections, use the magic wand tool. You can access it by clicking the letter W on your keyboard. Click inside the shapes created by your inking. When you use the expand options, you have to use 1 or 2 pixels. I recommend using 2 pixels so the selection will stay inside your inking lines. If your inking style is made with thicker lines, you can use 3 or maybe 4 pixels. Judge it by yourself depending on your drawing style and coloring. Use your brush tool to finish filling the spaces that the selection couldn't reach. Every time after using the paint bucket, you have to do a zoom in and look for missing spaces. You will know for sure that you didn't miss anything while coloring, and you will avoid having blank spaces on your comic strip. Give a check to your panels. Be confident when drawing free-handed your shadows. In the inking lesson you learn how to control your strokes. In this process, this control will be very helpful for you. Remember, if you don't feel that confident, you can always do some previous warm-ups before starting any drawing work. This will let you get a better coloring. Draw all of your shadows on the layer where you put the blending mode on. You can put all of your shadows on different layers, but you will have to activate the mode in every single one of them. Another great tip, if you have your shadows on different layers, merge them together when you finish and then put the blending mode on the layer that has all of the shadows in. This is the last lesson of our course on how to create a comic strip. I hope you enjoyed watching and learning as much as I did doing this course for you. Remember to show me the work that you have done throughout our videos and the things that you learned the most. I am so happy to see all of your comics and the things that you came up with. After you finish your comic strip, keep practicing. Maybe you can make this into your daily job. Keep practicing your drawing skills and always enjoy your process while making a comic or any other project that you have in mind. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you learned a lot throughout this course. Please let me know if you have any doubts or concerns regarding any of the videos. See you next time. Goodbye.